Starting in 2018, MagneRide Suspension was a $1,695 option. In my opinion, is worth every penny. I have the MagneRide on my personal car, and when I drive one without it, I can really feel a difference. The ride quality is better, and the overall performance is better. Like most factory suspensions, though, the only flaw in the MagneRide is the ride height. Today, we're going to fix that with a set of Steeda progressive lowering springs. These Steeda progressive lowering springs are going to fit your 2015 through 2019 GT or GT350R or any 2018 through 2019 Mustang GT with the MagneRide suspension option. It's going to be a direct replacement for your factory springs. You will have to cut your factory bump stops, but this is going to lower your car 1 inch all the way around. It'll also provide great handling and great ride quality. For this installation, with a lift and a pole jack or a jack and jack stands, torque wrench, 1/2 inch ratchet, 18mm socket, 19mm socket, 24mm socket, 3/8 ratchet, 13mm socket, 15mm socket, 17mm wrench, hammer, and a spring compressor. We're going to begin the installation in the front. The fronts are actually the harder ones to do, so we're going to start there. The first thing you're going to do, remove your wheel and tire, and since the MagneRide does have sensors, disconnect your battery. Then we're going to loosen up this strut here by taking these two off and leave one still loose to hold the strut in place. All right, so now we're down in the wheel well area with the wheel off. We're going to remove the sway bar. I'm going to put a wrench on the back, then remove the nut. Next thing we do is remove the calipers, but on the MagneRide cars, before you do that, there's the standoff here that's bolted to the strut. You're going to remove that so you can put the caliper out of the way and get to the spindle bolts. Okay, now we're going to unbolt the caliper. And now we're going to pull the rotor off. Put that out of the way. All right, now we disconnect the line for the MagneRide and then the ABS line. All right, you want to follow the MagneRide over here, the harness to the other side. Pop the clip off. And unplug it. Now we can separate the strut from the spindle. And to separate the spindle from the strut, we have to remove these two bolts. Now these are splines. What you're going to do is loosen the nut top and bottom, get it to the edge here, and you hammer them out. You want the nut at the edge so you don't mushroom the bolt and then you can't get it back on. All right, lift up on the strut now. Going to remove the last of the strut nuts. Remove the assembly from the car. All right, now we're going to compress the spring removed from our factory strut. Be careful here of the MagneRide sensor. You want to make sure you don't beat up on this too much as you're taking this thing apart. Okay, get the spring compressor on the spring. Again, be careful of the MagneRide sensor. Let's get the spring compressed. You can remove the strut cap. And decompress the spring. Okay, now we can load our Steeda spring in our spring compressor. Get a couple turns on that to make sure it's threaded in and tight. Then we'll decompress the spring, which put a little tension on this, make it easier to tighten down. Install the cap on the top, reseat this boot, that's ready to go back on the car. All right, I'm gonna take the strut assembly, put it back up into place. Install the nuts up top just to hold it. And now we can reconnect the spindle to our strut. And just tap these through to get the spline started. And then tighten them down to draw the bolt through. And now we're going to reconnect our ABS lines and our MagneRide lines. And reinstall the rotor and the caliper. Throw a lug nut on the rotor, makes it easier to keep it lined up to reinstall your caliper. Okay, reinstall the brake line. And last up over here, we're going to reconnect the sway bar. Now back up top, we're going to torque the strut nuts to 42 foot-pound. All right, repeat the process on the other side. Now we can move on to the rears. All right, to do the rears, first we're going to do is unbolt the shock mount, then the brake line bracket here to give us a little more room when we drop the subframe. And I'm going to grab a jack or a pull jack and support the subframe so we can loosen those bolts. Start with the two small ones up front here. And now we can remove the subframe bolt. Remove the rear subframe bolt. And lower it down. All right, now we can remove the spring. Reinstall the isolator on the new spring. We're going to put the rest of the tighter coils up. Make sure the lower is seated in the control arm. Push it up in place and jack it up. Okay, grab your subframe bolts. I'm going to start these by hand, get them both started first. And tighten them down. Okay, then we're going to tighten these to 129 foot-pound. Okay, we can reinstall the brake line. And then reinstall the shock bolts. All right, you're gonna repeat the process on the other side, reinstall your wheels and tires, and your installation is finished. Now, first thing you notice with the MagneRide with the Steeda springs, it rides pretty much like stock. I mean, ride quality, hitting bumps and stuff like that, feels pretty much exactly the same as it felt before. But you still get that like point and shoot. Like that's something the MagneRide just is so responsive, feels so good on the road. When you hit corners, I mean, it is tight, it pulls real hard. That's what makes the MagneRide so nice, is that you get that great ride quality, but like the harder you push it, like the better it performs. Yeah, definitely, I don't feel a change at all with ride quality. And again, it still feels absolutely amazing in the corners. We're on a nice twisty road here, but suspension's nice and tight. I mean, it's gonna turn as hard as we push into it. And so this car has aftermarket wheels and tires. It does have the CS3s on it with the 555 G2 tires. But even on a stock setup, I'm sure it's going to ride and perform just like the original setup does. And the nice thing too is the harder you push it, the better it's going to handle. I'm going to warn you about it if you're driving a MagneRide car for the first time, is it does make you feel like a better driver. It will compensate for coming to the corner a little too hard or too soft. Just don't overdo your driving, but as I said, the handling is amazing. And the price of the MagneRide, it is worth every penny. And with these springs now, the ride quality is the same, handling is still awesome, but now we got a much better stance with the car. And again, no issues with ride quality. I was a little worried once you lower it, sometimes the ride quality sort of goes away. In this case, not at all. The Steeda progressive lowering springs gave this 2018 Mustang GT a much better ride height. The stance is killer, and the ride quality didn't suffer at all. It actually rides even better because the suspension's tighter, we have less roll, but again, the overall ride quality is just as good as factory. The installation is straightforward, just like any other spring, about 2 hours. We'll be back on the road in no time. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure you click on the CJ button so you subscribe for future videos, and click the corner up here for more videos for your Mustang.